Before I get into this, I want to say a huge thank you on behalf of Sandi, Kayla, Ben and myself to the National Section for sending us on this amazing trip. What we found along the way has changed us profoundly and for the better. Don't let the title fool you, it's just a bit of tongue-in-cheek. Just a quick introduction. Here's the four of us just about to leave. You may notice the naivety all over our goofy smiles. We didn't really know what we were going to be met with. Our first stop was Chennai, where Adyar is located. This was so that we would be able to attend the second annual youth convention. We flew out from Auckland and had a brief stop in Singapore. We arrived around midnight on the 19th of December, about a week before the convention started. This worked well because we were able to explore Adyar campus and nearby city streets, really getting a feel for the TS in India and soaking in all the sights and sounds of the chaos outside. So we thought we thought an entry from Kayla's journal would describe our first impressions the best. And remember, we'd just been on a 24 hours traveling. We sort of worked it out. It was a 10-hour flight and a 4-hour flight. So we were quite tired. So this is sort of poetic language. The airport doors open up to the darkness of Chennai. 100 taxi drivers' faces light up at the sight of our foreign wallets. A rogue man snatches our freshly acquired prepaid ticket and boosts off into the distance. Street lights intermittently flicker, illuminating scenes of the apocalypse. Slums, trash, vicious strays. 4 pink Westerners grip their seats in terror as we are woven into the fabric of the Indian traffic. So we were overwhelmed by the amount of traffic, the constant honking of horns and crazy driving maneuvers our taxi driver took to get us back from the airport to the Theosophical Society in Adyar. So we arrive at the West Gate, but it's closed. We convince the taxi driver to continue the search for a way in. We proceed down Besant Avenue and find the Green Gate and convince the guard we are the people arriving tonight. He leads us into the darkness with nothing but a flashlight, and we arrive at our rooms and promptly go to sleep, exhausted from our journey. We awoke in the morning to be greeted by the beautiful grounds of Adyar. With the interesting architecture of the various buildings and the lush greenery all around, it has a very serene feeling in the midst of one of India's most populated cities. 10.5 million in Chennai. Twice as many as in New Zealand. So the Adyar compound is very large, creating a wonderful respite for weary travellers. The grounds also create an exquisite safe haven for many animals and other creepy crawlies. Nancy might recognise this puppy. So we came across many of the insects shown in the bottom slide picture there. And there was one particular tree that had literally hundreds of them on there. And I think that lizard there was eating them all. Because they're two separate bugs and they sort of join together, but then the lizard would eat one of them and the other one would scurry off. And the TS in Adyar has many interesting buildings. Among the accommodation, dining halls and administration buildings are temples, shrines and archways. There are 5 trilothons that were brought from a ruined temple in South India by Colonel Olcott to the Adyar grounds, lending the space a great deal of spiritual history. On the grounds is a wonderful library which has a museum. It's full of ancient scrolls, palm leaf manuscripts and very, very tiny books, including the Lord's Prayer in 7 languages. That's that one in the middle there. You have to have a magnifying glass to actually be able to read it. This is in the headquarters building. It's the one with all the elephants. That's a very famous picture. And there's a number of busts, statues and reliefs depicting figures from many of the world's religions and significant individuals within Theosophy. And we got quite a few comments from people in India that Ben looked a bit like Jesus, so we've got him posing before the Jesus. And there was a solar eclipse, or partial solar eclipse, and it took us by surprise because we didn't actually know it was going to happen. It was just the sun was not very strong, and actually Ben was expecting to see the 4 horsemen right over the horizon and claim our immortal souls as bounty, but it wasn't that bad. But you should hopefully be able to see it. The shape of the shadows was different, and also the lens flare as shown in the picture. So it was all crescent, so that was quite interesting. So after a few days of peaceful reflection within Ajah, we decided to step outside and soak in a little bit of Chennai. We visited many sacred sites and marvelled at the craftsmanship. The level of detail on some of these buildings is truly mind-blowing. We also visited some markets and shops within reach of Ajah. Although uncovering the treasures they held was fun, it was also quite overstimulating. We'd return to Ajah exhausted from these types of excursions. Sometimes we would be offered tea or coffee in one of the shops. This ended up being a very effective form of hospitality. And then the youth convention, as John said, took place on the 27th, 28th and 29th of December with a topic of meditation and human regeneration. And the course material was heavily inspired by the book Human Regeneration by N. Sri Ram, which is this little one here. A brief outline is as follows. In daily life there are pressures, problems, anxieties, boredom and exhaustion, and there may be hope that meditation will offer a way out and bring a sense of repose and freedom. If there are wars, quarrels between individuals, it is a reflection of the inner condition. If there is a better world within, then there is bound to be a better world outside. Darkness is essentially in the mind. We have to learn to bring light to our minds. Meditation cannot be separated from action. In our modern life, where everything is stirred up to a degree, there is no lack of opportunity for any latent tendency to be awakened. The merest breath of an influence seems enough sometimes to start it into action. And this is us trying to do yoga.
That's at 5:45 in the morning.
5:30, yeah. 5 o'clock is coffee to prepare us. And you can see me and Ben, I think, and Kayla's possibly there somewhere. So, we found that the program format was beneficial for a number of reasons, and all quite worthy of mention here. The theme of the convention, as I said, was human regeneration and meditation. All of the sessions focused on human regeneration were based on the book I just held up, the N. Sri Ram book. It was the format, though, of the youth conference that really stood out to us. They would proceed thusly. The youth convention days were divided up into discussion sessions with a 20 to 30 minute theory talk on a specific topic. Then we'd break up into smaller groups to discuss the questions relating to that topic for another 25 minutes. Then a member from each group would be nominated to present that group's ideas back to the whole group. And it always had to be someone different, so everyone had to have a go. So no sleeping. This approach allowed everyone to get involved and share their opinions, and also find out what their group mates thought. Presenting back and hearing from other groups provided a great all-round understanding of the topic. This format was perfect for both keeping everyone engaged and providing an opportunity to analyse our own opinions and listen and consider other viewpoints we may not have considered before. By the end of the convention, we thought of as though everyone there was family. And Sandi has a little quote, I'll let you read it. So Sandi said, "I particularly enjoyed the light meditation, which involved gazing, unblinking at a candle flame for several minutes. I found the flame held my attention and kept my mind from wandering off. As time went by, I lost awareness of everything around me and felt a beautiful sense of peace." And she also wrote, Sandi, interspersed throughout the days were meditation sessions. These included talks about different techniques, discussions on the aids to meditation, and each was followed by practical exercises such as sound and light meditations. This alteration between listening and interaction was a great way to break up the blocks of theory and keep the sessions interesting. As Chennai was very hot, keeping the sessions engaging was extra important to avoid people feeling tired from lots of talking. With the early start and warm afternoons, we made sure to tell ourselves, don't fall asleep. That didn't work for everyone though. Yes, Ben was having a bit of a nap. So on the subject of human regeneration, yes, this was the fun photo. This is at Blavatsky Bungalow if you've been to Adya. So on the subject of human regeneration, we discussed about how we are all conditioned from birth with ideas and labels based on who we are, based on the family, society, environment and culture, and how our experiences, both good and bad, colour our vision and lead to having a distorted view of the world. How we tend to identify with the personality, and how it is only by looking for and examining the distortions and illusions which our mind creates and then filters through that we can learn to become free of them and identify as our true self. When discussing the question, can we kill the past, there was considerable debate, some saying yes, others no, and some querying if we would even want to. After group discussions, we collectively felt that there was only one way to kill the past, quote unquote, was to stop allowing it to affect your present. This involved letting go of the emotions tying us to things which do not help and not holding on to anger or negative past experiences. Basically, just living in the present. While the youth convention taught different meditation techniques, we had already discovered that being in India alone was a lesson in active meditation. Just navigating the traffic, enduring the continual noise, heat and mosquitoes, and keeping your wits about you while surrounded by so many people is a challenge. On one of the evenings, we grouped around a bonfire and listened to stories and songs from all over India. It was already a very hot evening, so we didn't get too close to the fire. It was a little bit redundant, but I guess it was good for the mood. For Christmas, we attended the rituals performed by George at the Liberal Catholic Church. It was also great to be surrounded by other young seekers who are energetic and want to see the TS grow into the future. So that was our last night in Chennai before we flew to Varanasi. And then we were off to Varanasi, which would really challenge our expectations. We exited the plane, and after the heat of Chennai, we were excited by the cold, at least initially. By this time, we had figured out that we could Uber anywhere we wanted to go for only a few hundred rupees. So getting to the Indian section, headquarters, where the convention was held, was fairly straightforward.
That was slowed down, was it?
No, that was sped up. Along the way, we noticed that the locals seemed about as unprepared for the cold as we were. And I really like that guy's t-shirt, it just says why, sort of fitting for the... And then we arrive at the Indian section, the beautiful grounds mostly hidden by fog. Yeah, it turns out this was the coldest day in at least 15 years, down to 4 degrees that night. Something the organisers could not have predicted. And the building seemed to be designed for the rest of the year when it was much hotter. It was hard to find somewhere warm. Even here in the canteen, the windows were only mesh, so... And as we saw on the notice board, we were outnumbered, 1,400 to 86. So the 144th International Convention of the TS was held in the Indian section, and the theme was nurturing the divine seed.
I thought it was keeping warm.
Yes, that too. So the convention ran from the 31st to the 5th of December to the 5th of January, and I think there were around 1,500 members from across India and around the world. I think a few more arrived. We had a beautiful inauguration ceremony for the Dr. Radha Burnia Amphitheatre, which they'd just built. And then we had the prayers from all the religions. They had the students from one of the schools there, the Theosophical schools, do them. And I think the ones where they knew it, they did it in their own language, which was very beautiful to hear. And then all the sections, or people representing the sections, brought their greetings. And there were a lot of presentations, but we only have time to talk about a few of them. The first lecture was from our own national president, John Horstmans, Awakening the Heart-Mind. We explored what the heart-mind connection really is, and throughout the talk we learned about this connection in a clear and easy to understand way. Then we learned about what it means for the heart to enter the mind and how we can attain such a goal. Venerable Olande Ananda spoke on mindfulness, or mindful of things, in which we highlighted what being in the moment really means and how one can achieve that state. But I won't go through all the talks here because they've been live streamed and they're still up on the YouTube channel, so you can go and watch them. And a few slides from now I've also got the address for the TS website, so I'll show you that then. They also had an exhibition. Most people probably familiar with the book Thought Forms. They found the original paintings for that book and they had them on display there. So that was very special. And then after the convention, you notice what's wrong with that picture? The ATM is open for 24 hours, but it's closed. So desperate for a small taste of home, we visited a restaurant called Hot Chips. Alas, they didn't even have chips on the menu. This proved an all too common occurrence, with many restaurants offering Western food on the menu, but it not actually being available when you tried to order it. However, it proved to be another good lesson, this time in overcoming disappointment. It probably helped with our waistlines as well. The Indian diet does make the body feel a lot better than our Western breads and fats. This is the Vishwanath temple in Varanasi and is dedicated to Lord Shiva. The energy of this place was unlike anything we had experienced before. All day, worshippers from all over India would bring offerings and make solemn prayers within the various shrines directly beneath the steeple. Just being nearby this building, the potency of these ritualistic acts was palpable. We visited Ragnar Fort and Sarnath, which was the site of the Buddha's first sermon. Unfortunately, we missed it by about 2,500 years. Some more photos. I can't remember where these ones were. So we also had to visit the Ganges, and Asigat was the closest. There, they've probably seen a lot of these sort of pictures before. And that's us. And we went on a boat ride, and we went a little before dusk. So on our way back, we saw everything lit up. So it was very beautiful. And also at the end of the final day of the convention, there was a youth forum, designed to introduce the new youth members and provide a chance for them to ask Tim Boyd some questions, something he was unaware of, and it was only by chance that he just happened to stop by at the right time. So we were very lucky that Tim was there too. We had a good talk with some of the young Theosophists and the things that interested them. They said they had gotten involved in the TS as they wanted the chance to serve and loved the fundamental idea of unity within the Theosophical teaching, and felt it was one of the strongest points. They said that their favourite talks from the convention were Tim Boyd's and Clemisi's. One of the local Indian girls was passionate about helping the poor and was interested in advice on how to organise workshops to empower women. Tim shared some of his own experiences, which highlighted the effectiveness of introducing and interesting people in Theosophy by just beginning with social events. His experiences involving food, basketball games, and working on a community garden, but not all at the same time. Some of our ideas when we were brainstorming were art for children as a form of daycare, art for adults to explore our inner natures and take a break and restore our creative energies, organising a group to help animal shelters or sanctuaries, or taking a group hiking to reconnect with nature. Any activity which engages people and where applicable, Theosophy can be shared without it becoming overwhelming or lecture-like. Tim also pointed out that being a small group is not necessarily a problem, as many changes in the world began with small groups. Failure is crucial to success, but trying is required. Tim encouraged that we need to find where you can be helpful. What is it that you have to give? Then decide on your aim. What is it you want to achieve? After that, there is no roadmap to success. The best formula is simply commitment and just begin. We were also fortunate enough to be invited to a birthday party at one of their homes. And that's Petrie. She's on the left there with the peace sign. And she also showed us around on a day of sightseeing. And it was her brother's birthday. And it was very nice. So constantly we were impressed by the agile and responsive development of infrastructure everywhere in India. with health and safety seeming to be non-existent. Bamboo scaffolding and ladders were the way to go, and completely biodegradable. Power poles looked more like a strange sort of tree with circular ring leaves, hosting a mix of disused and broken cables, nestled happily among the very much live wires, waiting like a coiled snake to strike the unwary passerby. In many places, the actual trees even served as power poles. Waste not, want not. While power cuts were not infrequent, it was quite impressive that even with such a maze of cables and junctions, the problem was usually fixed within 5 to 10 minutes, and power was back up and running, probably with 1 or 2 more cables added to the mix. Helmets were optional for motorbike passengers, but at least you'll always have mobile coverage because they've got so many cell towers there. And those of you who know Sandi, she saw the puppies, and we visited them, I think, pretty much every day. So Sandi, being a staunch advocate for all the Earth's creatures, noticed there were a lot of skinny puppies about the compound in Varanasi, and took it upon herself to see they were fed adequately. Although initially many locals were sceptical and crowded around to see what the strange Westerner was doing, spending hard-earned rupees on stray animals, over the 2 weeks she persevered, and many started to see the benefit it was having on the little puppies, and hopefully left them with a softer, more generous feeling towards the younger brothers and sisters. After researching into the process of importing animals to New Zealand, which apparently is not allowed from India, Sandi ended up leaving some dog food behind so one of the locals could continue to feed them. So now we've got parting thoughts from each of us. So for Sandi, we've got many things in India conflicted with my preconceived ideas of how things should be, and it was a very useful experience to see my own worldview distortions. One of these ideas was the barter system. Our Western economic system, for the most part, makes purchasing items straightforward. The price is the price, and the customer only has the power to buy or not. I found the Indian barter system slightly insulting at first. When I inquired about the price and I was told something unreasonably high, I took offense. It felt like people were trying to trick me. The change of currency also made it difficult to determine what was and wasn't reasonable. However, once it became evident that the vendors were only setting high prices as they fully expected me to haggle them down, it started to make sense. The locals were following the rules of their economic system, and once I had an idea of what things were worth, I began to see the sense in such a system. One which provides a lot more flexibility and consumer power than our flat Western approach. So, for Kayla, there were a lot of good experiences in India, making new friends, seeing new places, and hearing Theosophists from all around the world sharing their wisdom. There were a lot of challenges in India. For me, spice is not a flavour. It is simply a sensation of pain. But I think that both the good times and the challenges worked in our favour, as it has all taught us something. I hope to return to India one day soon. Being home now, it sometimes feels as though we have found long-lost extended family and left them behind. So, Ben wrote, at times, the experience of India can be full-on, and this presented quite a challenge for me. Typically, I find large crowds work up a lot of anxiety in me. In learning to move and flow in the chaos of India, my worldview evolved a lot, and a lot of that anxiety vanished. The theme of the youth convention being human regeneration, we examined the idea of self-transformation and evolution, and I believe those two opportunities were offered to us every single day while in India. The chaos on the street was a wonderful teacher, and the contrasting serenity of Adyar is the perfect place to reflect on the overload of experiences. This recipe made for a cycle of meditation, whereby a lot of complex experiences were able to be integrated in a short period of time. I can tell already that I will be plumbing the depths of what we have learned in India for quite some time, and in many ways I have been changed by our India adventure. And then my thoughts. For me, the title None the Wiser speaks of the fact that I've come back from the youth conference and the international convention with so many great ideas and concepts, and in order to turn these concepts into wisdom, I have to apply them in my daily life. I often find that after coming back from a Theosophical event, it's very easy to fall back into old habits and routines. I think I will take some more time in the coming weeks to reflect on what I learnt in India, especially the awareness and non-attachment aspects. The trip to India has been great for getting out of my usual mechanical routines, and now I have the opportunity to go back to my life and try to live it with more awareness. Although some parts of the trip were a bit of a challenge, I did have a great time in India. For any of you who don't know, this is George from Australia. He was very busy with his camera, and thanks to his efforts we were able to nab some appropriate images for the presentation, especially the group photos. And he's also, he told us he spent the week after the convention going back to Agile and uploading all the photos, and I think he's done a very good job. So you can just Google search the Agile 114th convention, and there's the URL there as well. And this is what the webpage looks like. And if you scroll down, you get the entire program for all the talks, and they've got the link to the video, usually, and the photos in separate albums, so it's quite well organised. So our month-long adventure in India was a wonderful privilege and an amazing learning curve. We experienced so much more than we expected that it's impossible we have not all been deeply and permanently changed by it and how we will see the world in the future. It felt like all our preconceived ideas and assumptions were being shattered. However, we kept our foundations, and even before we left Varanasi, had to some extent begun the rebuilding process. More aware, confident and complete individuals with a diverse and breathtaking world. What we have gained in experience and friendship means so much for us. So thank you again to John and the TS here and in New Zealand for sending us on this adventure.